Hello, everyone. This is Rick Goff with Travel Ball Select, and I'm joined by Beaux, Waddell, the coach of the 10U TBT Southern Finest. And he's joining us today because TBS has named him the number one 10-year-old team for 2022. Beaux, thanks for joining us. And how does it feel to be number one?
First off, thank you for having me. It feels great. A long year. It's kind of a grind throughout the middle part of the season, but times like these really make it worth it. Getting the recognition I feel like they deserve. So definitely awesome feeling.
Well, you guys had a fantastic year, accumulated with a TBS National Championship, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But talk a little bit about the makeup of your team and how coming off of last year's number one rankings, you guys went wire to wire, preseason, midseason, end of the year rankings. You had to have a bullseye on your back everywhere you went. How was you able to keep the boys involved and challenged week in and week out?
I think the schedule that we play is a lot different than everybody else. A lot of people judge their schedule by what they think they can win. I look in terms of what's going to challenge us the most to be ready at the end of the year when we face the best arms that we're going to face. So we'll play up a lot. Last year when we were nines, we played up a lot in tens. This year we were tens. We played up in a lot of 11U majors. And like you said, having a bullseye on your back is a great thing because everybody wants to beat you in pool play. Everybody obviously wants to beat you in bracket play, but you get everybody's ace a lot of times even on Saturday. So you're going in, if you win the tournament, you're playing 5 or 6 games against everybody's ace. Well, by the end of the year, you're not going to face anybody that's any more dominant than you face through, you played almost 80 games. Out of those 80 games, I'd say 70 of those games are against an ace of that team. So it makes you more battle tested when it really matters down the road.
How important a role did the parents play on this? I mean, they've got to buy into the traveling that you guys did. Talk about your parents a little bit.
I think it's all been set up since they were 6. Being from Shreveport, there's not a lot. There are some AA and AAA tournaments, but it forced us to, if we wanted to play competitive, we had to go outside 2 to 5 hours away to play. So we've set the precedent from an early age that anything less would kind of be a letdown. They're used to, a lot of people, the Houstons, the Dallas, the bigger city, bigger markets, they get spoiled by never having to leave. So ours, they're just they're accustomed to that. And without the parents, obviously can't do what we want to do. But setting it at such an early age has allowed us to build off that every year, and they expect it because they've had a lot of success and they want to build off that year in, year out.
So do you guys let the parents know up front before the year starts, hey, listen, this is the amount of travel we're going to do. This is where we're going. And you guys need to be on board. If not, let me know. Is it that type of atmosphere you guys have?
Absolutely. We set that from the very first day of the parent meeting. And there's been times where we were scheduled to play our 8-year-old year. We were supposed to play in Atlanta. We already had hotels. We had Braves tickets. And I don't remember if it was a hurricane or something was coming up and really going to make bad weather. On the Tuesday before we were supposed to leave, we basically scheduled to go to Austin instead because they were going to cancel it anyway. So backed out of there and we scheduled to go to Austin. So instead of driving 8 hours northeast, we went another 6 hours southwest, and no issues with the parents whatsoever, just because they're all bought into the fact that like I said, we don't cherry pick tournaments except for the fact we want to play the best, but we want to see where we stack up because of the amount of work we put in. So if that means we have to travel here, make different plans to do that, as long as we're playing and I'm staying true to what I said as far as playing the best, they're 100% bought in.
So how early of a notice do you give your parents? So like right now, we're in mid-August of 2022. What's on the plate for the TBT Southern Finest in 2023?
It's going to look a little bit different in the fact 9 of our 11 players will go to the same school where I coach high school at. So we're trying to build, which is tough as you get older, to keep local kids and go play at a high level. So I'm trying to go do something that is tough to do. I know that going in. So we're still going to play the high level tournaments, and because we have 4 grade eligible kids, they're all going into the 5th grade. They're all in the 5th grade currently. We're trying to get, sometimes that may mean go play 12U majors. It just depends on that weekend. when and where. We want to play as often as we can. We want to play the best competition. If that means 12s, that's what we're going to do. So it's too early to tell what tournaments for the most part, because
Sure.
and I hate to say it, but a lot of teams do base their tournaments off where the better teams go, and they avoid it. So it's being strategic, waiting to the last minute, still talking to the directors, trying to be, hey, don't enter us too early. It may affect your teams that are registered. So it's a good and a bad problem to have, I should say.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the TBS Nationals. You guys ended pool play as number 1 seed. You guys come out of the gate against Gulf Coast Edge, a good ball game. 10-8 was the final in that game. What do you remember about that game? What can you tell me about that game?
Started off really strong, and we had a pretty decent lead on them. What I do remember is when you play good teams like them, or any team like them, you can never let your guard down for 1 second, because you're constantly thinking about the next game. But if you never get to the next game, it really doesn't matter. So we threw our ace for 2 innings, and I was like, man, if we're up 6 or 7, hey, let's pull them. Let's try to hold them for tomorrow. Well, did that. They kind of hit our next guy, got him back in the game. So before you know it, you end up winning a 10-8 game, which is better than losing. But it lets you know, and just the level of competition we saw up there, especially in bracket, playing the top bracket, you never know who you're going to put. I mean, there was a couple arms, and every year it gets tougher. But ran into a guy the last semifinal game and the final game that I thought that I'd seen all these guys that were good. I've seen them. Ran into 2 stud arms, and it was a battle. So the last 3 or 4 games were exciting, to say the least.
Yeah, let's fast forward to the championship game against Vipers. Reynolds out of Kentucky. I know I talked to the coach of the Vipers, and being out of Kentucky, he felt like he probably didn't get a lot of respect coming into this event. And, most people don't correlate Kentucky with baseball. But talk about that game. That was a 5-3 championship game. How impressive was that Viper team to you guys?
First off, it was impressive, the semifinal game and the final game, just for the live broadcast. I'll say that. So that stands out in my mind. Just having that, like it's a MLB experience, is special to the kids, special to the coaches, parents, everybody involved. But the 5-3 ball game, I can sit here and say I was worried, in which I was, but having to be double dips makes it a little bit less of, I don't know. I don't even really know what's the word I would call it.
Takes a little pressure off you, for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure versus being the other team where you have to win to go to the next game. So we still had 2 arms left for the next game, and there was no doubt that they were a great team. And that kid we faced was a dang good pitcher, lefty. He was a great pitcher, to say the least. So I knew there was no way they had another ace. They ran through, it felt like 10 or 11 games to even get to that game. I don't know if it was that many, but how in the world they had them saved is a mystery to me. Look back, I'm like, how did they even get this far without throwing that guy? So I knew there was no way they had somebody else. And if they did, well, heck, we may have been in trouble. But I felt good about our chances in the next game. But I was worried at one point. I was like, man, this guy's shutting us down. And we rallied late in the game in the last inning to pull it out. Thankfully, we did. But, man, like you said, I didn't give them much respect because I hadn't heard much about them. But that it taught me a lesson in the fact that I'm telling these kids never underestimate anybody. But honestly, I probably did. And even though I tell them not to do that on a consistent basis, we all get caught up in doing that just because you don't hear about them. But just because you don't hear about them doesn't mean that they're not out there working. So a lot of respect to them. And honestly, one of the best teams that we played all year, not just in that tournament, but all year.
Yeah, he did a nice job. Those guys did a nice job. And they I talked to a lot of coaches in just in different age groups. I always kind of ask them some general questions. How was your tournament? How, what's some good things, some bad things? And what's one team that surprised you the most? And in your age group, it was pretty unanimous that the team that surprised them the most was the Vipers. So, they did a good job with you there in the championship game, but you prevailed. And congratulations to you guys on that. Next year, we're moving the TBS Nationals to Myrtle Beach. And I understand you guys plan on attending and coming back to that. you're going to have an opportunity to do something that no one has ever done in the TBS Nationals, and that's try to three-peat. And that's never been done before. So you'll have that challenge as well as trying to do something that no one has done. A couple other teams are trying to do it as well. The East Cobb Astros up in the 13, 14-year-old division, and ZT Elite out of California will be trying to do it in the 13-year-old division. So history, there's a good chance that history will be made next year between one of you guys. The odds are one of you guys are going to repeat. So talk a little bit about, what you guys will do in the off season. When will you guys get started back up again? And what's the off season look like for your team?
It kind of feels like there's no off season in a way, because we're always working, whether it's individually or as a team. But majority of our kids, I'd say 75%, play football, play basketball. So when people say, oh, that team's, they're good, but they play year-round baseball. Well, technically we do, but we're also playing football and basketball just because I believe in well-rounded athletes. And my son, he plays basketball, football. He played any and every sport that he could, if that was, physically possible for us to get him there. But as far as a team, like I said, 9 of our 11 players go to the same school, and they're in the 5th grade. We have a middle school program at the high school I coach at where they all play for that middle school program, practice twice a week, optional defensive agility type workouts around their football schedule. So we'll practice as our regular team on Wednesdays and Sundays in the fall, and optional workouts Monday and Thursday for the school that they go to, mixed with all the other kids that want to come attend also. But as far as from a schedule standpoint, we'll play 3 or 4 tournaments just to keep them in the swing of things, and then really get going back in February, even though it's a little chilly. That's when we get back going. But still continuing Wednesdays and Sunday practices throughout the fall. And we don't do a lot of live pitching, a lot of bullpens or anything like that. We're doing mostly defensive work, base running, bunting, the little things that I think will turn up and be the difference maker late in the season come spring.
Well, Beaux, whatever you guys are doing over there, it's working for you. You guys are back-to-back TBS national champions and back-to-back TBS #1 end of the season ranked teams. So congratulations to you, your parents, your kids on an honor well-deserved and on a great year. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the TBS Nationals in Myrtle Beach.
Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.